Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. So this is the first video since the Mr. Olympia where, placed top 5. Yeah, I thought I'd do like a little kind of wrap up summary type video. I think the last time I did one like this really was after Toronto, but I kind of like making that sort of video, and obviously, I haven't made that many videos since then. This year we've done pretty good with the videos, but I sort of wanted to have something to sort of compare to. I'm in a very, very different place in my bodybuilding career compared to where I was back then. Obviously my social media has like exploded over the past couple of weeks. Obviously the placings, just more opportunities, being even busier. And then at the same time, we need to be even more sort of tactical about planning our next competitive moves, and obviously just making adjustments in terms of training, in terms of nutrition, managing like body composition from now until the next Olympia. So yeah, I will sort of go over the week with you guys a little bit more in depth. So obviously landed in Vegas on Sunday. Pretty much got settled in straight away. Great spot where we stayed. Quite a lot of pros stayed there as well. So running into people all through the weekend, like him, Andre, Quinton, people like that. It was a good environment to be around. Really, really different experience for me this time. Obviously, last year I stayed with the Control Insanity guys, and there was like 14 of us in a pretty big Airbnb. But this time, it was just the two of us in like a nice little flat. Had a pool, had a jacuzzi, had a gym, like so I could do my steps and everything. And this whole prep from Tampa to now, I felt like really, say now it's done, but Tampa till the Olympia, I felt really calm. And I don't know if it's like, just maturity or experience, but like last year I was like really excited to like get on stage. And I remember when they called me for the second call out, I was like hyped. I was like, oh my gosh, I'm placing. I'm in the second call out, like, I basically almost ran out to the stage when they called my number out there. So that kind of sums up, how I was feeling. And I just wanted to place, like I said many times, I said in different interviews and stuff, that my goal last year was to just place. And, after getting 11th, kind of like settled down and had like a goal for myself. And for this year, my goal was to place 8th. Like that was the number that I wrote down. I have a little note on my phone every year where I write down all my goals for the year. And obviously, that comes with competitive goals as well. The goal of winning Tampa and the goal of placing 8th, but we've specifically beaten a few people. I beat all those people and obviously, some more, and kind of outdid myself like yet again, really, because I think a lot of people did not have me in the top 5. I always post fasted updates and things like that, so people kind of look at me and think, I'm not going to be big enough. And at this point, I'm one of the biggest guys in the division. I was 244 pounds for finals. I was 240 pounds in the morning for prejudging. So, I'm not at a point where size is, and you can look at me compared to the other guys, I'm not at a point where size is more of an issue. It's just about refining my physique and building, on my strengths, and, just nailing my weaknesses even harder, to just make sure that they're where they need to be to continue. Our first couple of days, we were just sort of training, hanging out with Carl, running into fans. Shout out to Torture Gym. They were absolutely amazing. They were really good when I went last time. Last time I went after the Olympia, but this was our like main gym for the Olympia week. They let us train for free. Made sure that we were all good. I went there for like my massages as well. They had a picture up of me that I signed last year, and they replaced it with a picture of Tampa for this year, which I signed as well. The staff are amazing. The equipment's awesome, and it's just a really, really good gym to train in. So we were there for our last few workouts. Obviously, we were making weight. Now, this was the funny part. So obviously, I spoke to you guys and said that last year my height was 6'125". So they told me my weight cap's 234 pounds. Obviously, I've done Brazil with a weight cap of 234 pounds, and I did Tampa with a weight cap of 234. So we got there this year, and I think I weighed in at like 230 in clothes, and they heightened me shorter than they did last year. So my cap was 227, so I had to go to the sauna. Obviously, you know, that's been a whole thing with the heights and stuff for the classic guys this year. I'm not going to say too much about it. You know, at the end of the day, I'm a professional athlete, and whatever, you know, the sort of governing body of like the IFBB decides I have to do, like, I have to do it if I want to do my job. So they said that the weight caps are going to be fixed every Olympia. So what that means for us is until next Olympia, my weight cap's going to be 227. You know, I'm hoping if we stretched into the higher weight class last year, I'm hoping that we can do it again for the Olympia next year, because I was literally only, I think, 3 millimeters under or something like that. You know, it's not like I'm trying to gain 2 centimeters. You know, obviously that's due to things like flying, you know, my spine being a bit compressed, and obviously heat as well. You know, Vegas was really hot the day of the weigh-in. You know, me and Cal handled it. You know, shout out Cal for the whole week, like my whole life in general, but the week, you know, especially that moment, like that's probably the closest I came to like crashing out. You know, I'm not gonna lie, guys, I was walking to the sauna, right? I was like, man, fuck this. I'm just gonna eat. I'm gonna get to 280 pounds, foot classic. I'm going to open right now. Right? I just like, you know, I was drained. I was exhausted. So eventually, you know, you have some kind of outlet. Like you can't hold that inside, especially when you get on stage in like 2 days, you know? So yeah, I just vented a little and just went about my business, heighted in at the weight that they wanted me to be. And yeah, from there, you know, started eating. I had a lot to do. Obviously, I think if any of you guys watch Wesley Vizers, you will see me talking to him on his channel. Obviously, he's on mine in the last video as well. You know, we had that sort of interview arranged. We had a photo shoot with Dark Sport, a 2 days out photo shoot. I had my first podcast with Fuad as well. I think that was a day before I weighed in. I had so much going on in comparison to last year, and just sort of more responsibilities and obligations as an athlete. You know, first of all, it shows like the work I've put into to like continue to grow as an athlete. And then it just kind of shows that, you know, that work is being noticed, you know, across the industry, and more people were talking about me, you know, being a real threat this Olympia. And that was, you know, my goal. Like last year, my goal was to just a place. This year, my goal was to like get on stage and people be like, you know, this guy could be a problem for everyone. And I think that, you know, jumping from 11th to 5th, I proved that, even with the, you know, sort of little mishap of having to run to the sauna at the last second. So for you guys that maybe aren't that tapped into bodybuilding like heavily, you know, having to lose a ton of weight right at the end, unnaturally, you know, just like sweat out in the sauna, that can affect your look negatively. You know, it kind of depends how much, and it kind of depends if you sort of allow that stress to get to you as well. Sometimes, you know, food won't really have the reaction that you want it to afterwards. Sometimes your body struggles to get rehydrated again. You know, that wasn't the case for us. It was my best look ever. And I feel like at finals, like I peaked, like that was the best, you know, in terms of everything, like my conditioning, like I was harder than I was at prejudging, my size, like I was the biggest I've ever looked, you know, everything looked just on point, and I was really, really happy with that. But yeah, you know, we had our meet and greet that day, you know, meeting many fans, and I actually started to feel a little sick after that, through my throat. We had one more day. It was pretty much just, I had 2 hours at the Elevate in the HD booth and the Dark Sport booth, and then I just went home, literally just sleeping, eating, posing. Woke up at 4 a.m. the next day, and, you know, it was game day. So I think Cal came to the Airbnb, you know, we got a first meal in, went through a round of posing, then we went to the venue for the tan, you know, got my second coat of tan. And then the three of us, you know, were just kind of chilling in the same Starbucks that we chilled in last year, just waiting. And then, yeah, we went to prejudging. And, you know, last year it was like very daunting. You know, there's a lot of pros backstage. There's like a huge gym, the music's blasting. Like, it's very overwhelming experience. This year, you know, it was in the exact same place. I knew where to go. I knew everything. So for me, it was like, you know, you already know what the Olympia experience is. Now it's time to like go out there and handle business. You know, sometimes I have had anxiety at the last minute. Shout out the 2022 MK Classic. That was the worst one by far. That's the one where I absolutely sold. But yeah, this time I was almost waiting for it like to just get nervous, and it never happened. I was like, I feel way almost too calm. And I think it's because, you know, everything that we could control, we did. I worked harder than I ever have this prep. I knew that I looked my all-time best, and I knew that I looked better than Tampa as well. And I was like, you know, if I'm going to win Tampa against one of the best bodybuilders in the world right now, I think that means that, you know, if I improve on that, then, you know, we'll really be pushing the top guys. And yeah, I went out there and did my thing at prejudging. I actually don't really remember being called out to the first call out, because, you know, as I talked about in my podcast with Fuad, like, I did expect it for myself. I don't mean that in an arrogant way. I just mean, you know, that was a goal I set out, and like, I really wanted it. You know, some people just say, oh, I want to be Mr. Olympia one day, or I want to be a pro, and the actions don't reflect it. Like, every single day from last Olympia to this one, I've thought about, you know, this is what I want to do, and making sure that my steps are getting done. All the things that I've been doing for years, you know, practicing my posing, you know, going through my vacuums, training as hard as possible, every single variable. Like, I just went even harder at them. And I was like, you know, if I can get 11th last year, first time out, and I'm going to improve on basically everything this year, there's no reason why I can't not get into the first call out. So yeah, you know, went out there, and obviously some points I was like stood next to Ramon, I was stood next to Terrence, stood next to my bro Mateus again for the third time. Yeah, it was like, I just kind of did my thing, and I really felt in my element. Like I said before, guys, I haven't done that many shows. I've done, I think, 6 pro shows now, maybe 7 actually. You know, obviously the Arnold was my first one, and then I did 3 last year. Yeah, I did. So this is my 6th pro show, and I've only been on a bodybuilding stage 11 times. When I did my first Olympia, I've been on a bodybuilding stage like 8 times. That was the 8th time being on a bodybuilding stage. You know, like, it doesn't feel natural to me. You know, to put it in perspective, like, there's some guys who've done 4 or 6 shows this year, right? Someone's done 6 shows this year. That's quite literally half of my entire bodybuilding journey, not even my bodybuilding career. This was the first time where, like, it felt like what I was meant to do, and it was just different. You know, even going to finals, like, finals was a crazy experience. The venue's like ridiculous. You know, the seats go all the way back, they go up really high. There's like 2 giant screens on the side. You know, the stage is way bigger. It's, you know, you have like staff that are like following you around 24/7. There's only a few of you as well, right? You know, you stood there with like all the best men's physique guys, all the best open guys. Like, you know, I'm seeing like Ryan Terry chilling over there, like Sampson's there, Nick Walker's like there, you know, Martin's, shout out Martin, he like, you know, made the show week for me, because saw him a few times in the gym, you know, and saw him at finals, and he's just been so supportive and so helpful. But yeah, you know, we got to go to finals, do my Spider-Verse routine, which I put a lot of time into, and I like, you know, after the Halo routine at Toronto, I was like, I need to think of a song that's like, a lot of people know, and they know straight away, right? Like, you hear the first 4 or 5 seconds of the Halo theme and you know what it is. And I feel like people that, you know, have seen the Across the Spider-Verse film, the moment you hear those like first 2 notes, you know what it is, right? And I think as well, that song kind of reflected my intent for the whole Olympia week and what I wanted to get out of the show. And then yeah, man, we got 5th place. You know, got paid pretty well, paid more than I did for winning Tampa. So shout out the Olympia. I think I got back home at like 4 a.m. and then like 6 a.m., 6:30 a.m. I was like already getting dressed for a dark spot shoot, which was awesome. All the guys were there, Ramon, Terrence, Kai Green was there as well. He came up to me and he, you know, had some really nice words to say, which actually will have been in the last video as well. So you guys, you know, will have seen. That was probably one of my most surreal bodybuilding experiences so far, because when I first got into bodybuilding, I think Kai had already really kind of stopped competing, but I was a really big fan of Kai Green and Phil Heath, like together, like their sort of beef and like how they were mentally as athletes. So watching the live stream and having Phil Heath commentate on me at the Olympia was really weird, because like that's like my goal, right? Kai coming up to me and like, he's like, you know, number 10, like, you know, we were like, you know, just watching you like yesterday, and we're like so impressed, and you know, we see so much of a future in you. And again, you know, that's like the other guy, like I used to have his documentaries like downloaded on my phone. I just like watched them. Yeah, it was like very, very emotional week, just knowing what it meant to Cal as well, you know, seeing him not satisfied, but, you know, it's kind of like we finally got to where we've been talking about getting to for, you know, 2 or 3 years, which isn't that long of a time. But, you know, with the sort of leaps that we have in progress, you know, he went from being a nobody bodybuilder, basically, having beaten no one, you know, to winning my first show with a perfect score, and then, you know, climbing into the placings. Like, I think there was 60 guys last year, and, you know, beat like 49 of them, 48 of them. And then, yeah, like this year, an even bigger show at Tampa, an even better look, more improvements. And then we only had 9 weeks from Tampa to the Olympia, and I still can't believe that we managed to transform my physique yet again from Tampa. You know, we're sharper, we're like bigger, I was way bigger on stage, obviously I had more time to eat. Yeah, it was just like an absolutely insane week, guys. And obviously now, you know, it's like there's even more pressure, right? Because like there's going to be more eyes on me than there's ever been. You know, bigger names in the industry are going to talk about me more. Every move that I make, every placing that I have, every look that I bring to stage, every big decision I make in my career is going to be, you know, under more scrutiny, and it's going to be, you know, watched more intensely than it ever has been. You know, I wanted this for a start, and I've always been very interested in sort of, you know, the mindset of athletes. Like, I haven't really talked about this before, but, you know, if I wasn't an athlete, I think I would have liked to have done something alongside, you know, sort of building athletes' mindsets, you know, like therapy for athletes and stuff, or like, you know, sort of mindset training. But that kind of thing fascinated me because, you know, everything about bodybuilding, you do have to have like a strong mindset. You know, you stood on stage in basically nothing in front of, you know, even if it's just like a random regional show, like an amateur, right? It's probably going to be like 300 people there, right? And there were these massive bright lights on you. The videos are in 4K. You can't do anything wrong because everyone's going to see it, right? Like, if you lose control of your midsection, if you screw up a pose, if you lose your balance, you know, if you start sweating, everyone can see it. So, you know, it does require a bit of mental strength to just sort of lock in and ignore that. Then, you know, you've got like your interviews, your podcasts, you know, even interacting with fans. You know, some fans are very extroverted people, some fans are very shy, you know, very awkward. So you got to get used to all those interactions, and having those interactions when you're also exhausted or maybe nervous, you know, because it's like the day before the biggest event of your career. And, you know, I've managed to deal with all these things, you know, better than I hoped. And, you know, every year I think I get better, you know, doing the Arnold and meeting so many fans. I didn't expect to have that many fans back in March. It was crazy. And then obviously the Olympia was just different. So, you know, I really think that I am built for this. You know, there's so much more to come, but that pretty much wraps up the Yap session, guys. So we have more videos planned. You know, I'm going to talk more in depth about my off season with you guys. You know, I'm going to try and get Cal in a video because he's the wizard, right? He's the reason I keep coming back on stage looking like a different guy every time. I had a goal as well this year of a certain amount of YouTube videos. It wasn't a lot because, you know, I do like 2 videos a year and then I dip, right? Like the Corey Kenshin Classic, that's what I do. But this year we've been really good with the videos. You know, we had videos through the off season. You know, we had videos through prep. We obviously had a show day video. I did take a little bit of a hiatus from videos after that video in Texas. And to be honest, guys, I had so much going on in my personal life alongside prep. And, you know, by the time I got back from Texas, I think I had 8 weeks. So, you know, it was like 8 weeks, a ton of pressure. Pretty much every post, every story that I posted online was like taken and posted by multiple media pages, right? So I stopped using social media because some people would have nice things to say, some people wouldn't. Bodybuilding fans, right? You know, you can think and say whatever you want, just like any other sport. But again, like I said, with that mindset and just being in control of it, like I'm not going to expose myself to potential negativity, or, you know, the opposite. Like I'm not going to let the comments that are glazing me just all go to my head and think that I was going to, you know, go straight to the Olympia, smoke everyone, you know, and win. Like, the Olympia isn't like that. It's the best of the best, right? You know, I just needed to really experience bodybuilding and prep in a different way where it really was like a job, you know, right? And obviously you come back from work and you switch off from work, you have downtime, you know, you enjoy your hobbies, you spend time with your family, whatever it is. And I wanted to do that. because I was so exhausted and I pushed myself so hard. I did need, you know, every day just some time away where I didn't think about bodybuilding and it wasn't consuming my life, right? Like it's a, you know, I want it to be something that adds to my life. I think bodybuilding should make you better as a person, and it should make, you know, all aspects of your life better. And I think if it's not, you know, you need to either look at yourself or you need to maybe reassess if the sport is for you, or maybe if you can do it in a better way. So yeah, that's why I took a break, and it paid off, right? Like I did nothing but just focus. When I was in the gym, you know, I was just focusing on that one goal of being in the first call out, right? You know, when I was exhausted, like it made it easier to just, you know, not cheat on my diet. Like it didn't bother me, almost like the hunger. And the, you know, I remember waking up at like 2 a.m. multiple nights, right? Just like craving the most ridiculous foods, like things I don't even eat, and almost laughing because I was like, I'm not gonna do anything about it. Like my brain is so almost trying to convince me to like get up and like open Uber Eats at like 2 a.m., right? But like there was just not a chance in hell I was gonna do it. So I almost found it hilarious that was happening. But like I said, because I didn't have too much of a focus outside of when I was practicing my posing, doing my cardio, checking in and working out, like any other time, you know, even the podcast that I listened to, nothing to do with bodybuilding or sports really. You know, I was playing games, I was just kind of relaxing, you know, spending a lot of time with Eli as well, because, you know, obviously what he went through right before I went to Tampa, like 2 or 3 weeks out, and I didn't see him for 2 weeks. You know, I did really, really miss him. And, you know, it was going to be only 7 or 8 weeks before I was leaving again. So it was 7 weeks actually, you know, before I was leaving him again. And I wanted him to, you know, really feel like I was there. So he spent every morning with me, you know, coming straight upstairs. I'd open a door and he'd run straight to the office and just, you know, chill by the treadmill, because he knew, you know, I took him on basically every walk that I could. You know, I made sure that he was right by me when I'm working. And the only time he really felt like I wasn't there was when I was going to the gym for those, you know, 2-3 hours. So obviously we got that done, mission accomplished. And yeah, we've got some more very, very big goals for 2026. For now though, you know, I'll catch you guys in the next video and we'll just kind of come back down to reality, right? It'll just be more training. I hope that I can get some of my friends on the channel as well and collab with them. Shout out to Toyton. I need to get you back, bro, because he just got his pro card naturally. You know, absolutely phenomenal bodybuilder. And yeah, maybe we can get just a little bit more variety of content. But I appreciate you guys for all your support. If you ever like use my code, watch my videos, like my posts, like my stories, follow me, like it has changed my life completely. And I'm just grateful. Yeah, there's so much more to come. So for you guys that are like supporting me and enjoying following the journey, I promise that, you know, the journey is still going. It's far from ending. I'll catch you guys in the next video. Take care.